let's take a look at particles and how to create this simple fire effect. Alright, so for using this for the texture that I'll be using, I went ahead and just got it out of Kenny's particle pack. And I just removed the background for, if I zoom out, specifically this smoke here that I'll be using. This is smoke number 5. Obviously you can use whatever you want. This is just happens to be what I picked out for a different effect. But it's the one I'm going to use for showing you how to do this. Right, so I'm just going to open up a whole new scene here, completely fresh. And I'm going to add into my scene GPU particles. Right, and I'm just going to zoom in a bit. Alright, so the first thing we need is we need something to be loaded on the screen, right? Because we can't see anything, no matter what we have. So if we come on down to, let's see, where is that going to be under? It's going to be under drawing here. The drawing tab on the inspector. I'm just going to grab my smoke PNG here and drag it into my texture slot. And there we go. We now have some particles. There's only 8 of them and they're kind of falling down. Now we want to make a fire, so we need it to go in the other direction. We need it to go up. So let's take a look at direction. I chose the wrong thing. I picked CPU particles. Let me just fix that real quick. GPU particles. There we go. Just wondering where my little box here went. All right, GPU particles. Texture section. So my mistake there. Forget what I said about the drawing section. Because we don't need the drawing. That's going to have a different effect. But here we got process material and texture for the texture slot. I'll drag my smoke in, and again we'll have the same situation, although this one isn't falling yet. And I'm going to come on down to my process materials here. I'm going to select a new particle process material, and now I have my particle material, and we can see it's starting to fall, but it's constantly resetting. So I'm just going to open that up. We still have 8 particles, and that's all. It's falling down, but it's not lasting very long. So if we come down and we take a look at the lifetime, we can see we have 1 second. And if we look at the time inside of our process material, we have lifetime randomness. So if you were to turn that up, some particles will last longer than others, plus or minus 0.72. So particles here, with this randomness meter, that means they're going to last from, if we subtract that, 0.28 seconds all the way up to 1.72 seconds. That's why you see them kind of gyrating there. Some of them are falling longer, some of them are dying immediately. Alright, so I'm just gonna delete that randomness, but that's how that randomness would work there. So it's your lifetime plus or minus your randomness, and that'll be your range. And that randomness works the same way throughout all these different categories here. But first off, we can see our thing is going down. We want it to go up. Now that's also pretty big, so we'll adjust that in a moment. But if we take a look at direction, well, that's not affecting it. Gravity, oh, there we go. That's what affecting it. That's on our x-axis, or sorry, our y-axis, and it's positive y, so that's pulling us down. So I'm just going to change it to -98, and that'll pull us up. Now we see the same effect, but it's happening at the top. So let's give it some initial velocity, and this velocity is going to control how fast it's moving. So I'm just going to back up a bit here, and I'm just going to add in 10, or maybe we want to go a little higher, 20. You know, it's all going to be different. We can't see a whole lot at the moment. Let's tweak our scale. That way we can actually get a smaller fire, because in this case this is a huge texture, and obviously that's going to take up a lot of space here on the default screen here. So I'm going to go to my scale, and I'm going to do a scale curve. and do a new curve texture. And I'll open that up and I'll click on my curve. Alright, so now you see we've got 1 point on the left, 1 on the right. The higher you go, which right now it's already at 1, it's going to affect our scale. So if I grab the beginning here and I pull it down, we're going to have small to start with and then it'll get big. And for fire, obviously we kind of want it in the other direction as well. So I'm just going to leave that at about 0.28 and I'm going to grab my handle on the right and just drag it all the way down. Alright, so this, it's not looking too good. Now we're just kind of pulsating there. So let's go down and add some more life to this. I'm going to add 5 seconds so we can take a look. There we go. So we can see it going off is drifting. Now it's not quite what we're looking for. And why is that though? We can see on the X it's kind of drifting off to the side, which could be okay if you wanted, you have like maybe some kind of wind affecting your flame. But in this case, we just have fire going straight up is what we want. So I'm going to head on up to my direction here. And I'm going to take the X from 1 to set it to 0. So now it shouldn't be affecting us at all. So we can see it's going straight up, but the spread is what's tweaking us here. So by default, it's 45. I'll set it to 0. Alright, so I'm just going to change the direction here on my y-axis to a 1. I should set that to -1 here. But you see we're going to go along the y-axis here, keep ourselves going up. Now that I have that, I'm going to reset my spread, take a look, 45 degrees. I think that'll be fine for a fire. Now, I'd like to get more of a fire look to this. So I want to go up to my amount at the top of the inspector and change my amount from 8 to maybe 100 to get a better idea of what this is going to look like. Okay, so we can see it's starting at one size and it's getting smaller towards the end of its lifespan. That's great, that's better, but it's lasting too long. So I'm going to scroll down and tweak my lifetime here again. Let's take a look at 1, see what that default looks like for us. That is clearly not enough for us, at least here. So we can either play with our lifetime or we can come in and play with our scale here. Because if we were to lower this to maybe 0.1 or so, we can see we're kind of getting that little flame flickery off. So it's going to be a matter of just kind of finding something that works between scale and lifetime here. I think I'm going to go with 1.5 for my lifetime and have my scale at 0.12 and have it end down at 0. Alright, and of course you can slide your scale in to kind of cone it out a little bit if you want to add a little more shape to it. As you can see, when we're out here it's a little more vertical, whereas when we come in it kind of curves in a bit. So you can kind of shape your fire there if you want. I'm just going to leave mine as it is, where it's kind of mostly vertical. So we can see curves, we can affect it over time, and we can decide where we want it. And we can also add extra points in here, as you can see here. So we start at one size, then go bigger, and then come smaller again. We can go really small, and then come bigger later. So you can see we can kind of get these different effects in by adding these handles. And if you want to delete a handle, just right click and left click to add a handle in. Alright, so we kind of have this kind of fire look going on. However, we do have this gray image, right? So let's go ahead and add some color to this. So I'm going to go inside the color tab. Now I'm going to add a color ramp here. New gradient texture. I'll open that up and I'll open the gradient. And my first color here, I'm just going to double click on my black. Lighten that up. I'm going to go with more of a yellow here. Maybe I'll lean a little towards orange, something like that. And then later on, I'm going to go with a nice red. And we can see this orange gradient going down in between. And you could tweak your slider here. And we could always come back and tweak it again later. Now, my fire is just kind of randomly disappearing at the top. I don't like that. So I'm going to add another slider in here towards the end, just by left clicking. Now open that up and I'll just turn the alpha all the way down. That way we can have a nice gradual, bit of a gradual fade to our fire here. Now I know what you're thinking, we still have that kind of cloud look to it. It's not looking too fiery like I showed you at the beginning. Don't worry, we'll get to that. That's just going to come into the way that we blend it in with our smoke. Now, I'll go ahead and show you a hue variation here. You can actually use this if you want to kind of get like some random colors going. For example, if we come all the way from -1 to +1, take a look at that. And I'll close that in more. Yeah, I don't want to hang on to that too long just because that is a lot of flashing in case anybody has any issues. And for the most part, we're done with the actual fire portion. Now you can come in and you can play with things like the angle here, right? You can come in, play with the angle. It's not going to do a whole lot for this texture. It's going to do a little bit, right? Just to kind of randomize or shape up a little bit when I think spawn in. We have other accelerations that we can play with. Now this one isn't going to do a whole lot for us there, but we've got, let's say, the radial that we can play with. We've got linear acceleration, and all of these of course have their own curves that you can edit and play with. Orbital is going to have to do with it rotating around. So you can see I can kind of get some cool effects with that. Now for us with fire, obviously we don't need any of that. So we'll just set that back down to 0. And of course then we have things like angular velocity, which is going to affect how it's spinning speeds. Now that's kind of cool. So maybe we'll go with that, right? It's kind of neat. Alright, so for us, that's about it. There isn't a whole lot more we can do. If you had a sprite sheet instead of a single image, you can go into the animation section and you can set the speed curve, the offset, and you can set some animation through going that route. But for our little fire here, I'm gonna say that we're done, and we need now a smoke to go behind it. And the smoke here plays an important role. So I'm just gonna select my particle and just hit Control D to duplicate it. And then I'm gonna select my process material here. And from the drop down, I know you can't see it, but I'm just gonna select Make Unique. And I did it just by clicking on the arrow here. And I click Make Unique Recursive, just so I can get it as unique as possible, right? That way I don't affect the one that I duplicated, our original fire here. So I'm just gonna reset my color ramp here, because I'm not gonna need that. I'm just gonna set this to a gray that I think will work for a smoke. And for the most part, I don't really have to do much else in this case. I think I'm going to reset my angular velocity for my smoke, and I'm going to extend my lifetime a little bit to maybe 1.75, so it lasts 0.25 longer. And now here's where the magic comes in. I'm going to grab my smoke and put it behind the fire. And now with my fire selected, I'm going to come on down to, just give me a moment, to under canvas item. In the inspector, we go to material, and I'm going to select a new canvas item material. And for the blend mode, I'm just going to change it to add. Now we got something that's more fire-like in its appearance. And now from here we can come in and we can tweak that color gradient on our fire if we wanted to. If I come in, we can come in a little more. We see we get more something like that. And it kind of looks like we've got like a molten rock or something going on there. If I bring that back out, if I bring it out far enough, we can get some oranges in there. And of course, I can always just change my red to an orange. But you see how we get that? We get that nice red hot white center of a flame. For my smoke, I'm going to go back in there. And now I'm going to tweak the size, right? The scale. I play with my scale curve here. And maybe I want it bigger. Maybe I want it a little smaller. That's going to be a little bit of a personal preference there. As you can see. So you can, again, just by tweaking the scale here, we can get different, we got that different amounts of smoke. It's kind of coming off of our fire. But you see that one blend mode changed everything. And to give you, I mean, you can take a look, you can play with the others. So subtract is going to subtract the colors out of it. So we're going to have this black instead of white. We're going to have these blues instead of our reds and oranges. Multiply is going to darken everything. It's going to be really weird looking. And mix is the default that we had. So you can see just by going from mix to add, we have this really nice fire appearance. And it doesn't really matter what the initial texture looked like. We just kind of had this round appearance. This is what we base that off of. Alright, so what I'm going to show you here as well now, since we have this, I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to select both of these. And copy them. Make my own duplicate. And of course I'm going to have to move these, but I'm going to have to make these unique as well for what I'm going to do. But you see, now that you have a fire here, I'll make these unique. You can see how you can come in and you can just start tweaking things now. So if I change my direction to 1 on the X, for example, the initial velocity is 20. And we just come in and we start playing with things. So see, that goes on over there. Change the lifespan here, this effect, and we see we start coming out. So instead of negative 98 that way, maybe grab the right. So there you go. Right, go. I don't know. Let's try 120 on the X, 98 on the X, and then we'll lower this down to negative 50 or negative 25 or something. Shorten my lifetime back down. We'll say 2 seconds. And we see we're starting to get this this look, right? We're kind of coming out to the side, almost a little more flamethrower like, and we're kind of getting almost like a little curve going up just by tweaking a few of these things. Oh, we're not going to want that orbital in this case, but you can see you have this fire now, and now it's just a matter of you can just tweak it, right, to make different variations on your flame. Alright, so just by playing with a few of the sliders, there we go, using that same flame, we now have this kind of a magical, I guess, flame kind of look. We're going out to the side and it's kind of curving up a bit. Not super extreme on that curve, but it is. And if you're curious, I just got that hue variation to get that magic look, and then I tweak the color ramp here just by moving my slide along. Other than that, with the orbit velocity, that's where I kind of get this curve kind of starting in there. So you see, if we come in and we were to go like 0.3, you can see we kind of got that like really extreme curve, but that's kind of vibrating. So I probably wouldn't want that personally, but we can come back down to like 0.1, and you can see how that variation plays in. Here, maybe something like that. But yeah, so just playing around with some of the some of the sliders a bit, and we got this completely new particle here that we can use. And it was based on that fire that we created. So hopefully that gives you a good idea or introduction into these particles and that blend mode in the materials. Changing it to add, as you can see here, makes a huge difference. But alright, I think that's going to do it for this video. It's already starting to go on a little longer. If you guys want me to show you how to make like some more types of particles, some more effects, by all means, just let me know down below. Maybe what kind of little effects that you're looking for, and maybe we'll create those in the future.